My son called me staff at dinner while my wife smiled. They had no idea I owned 51% of the company she worked for. The next morning, her boss got a summons to an emergency board meeting. My name was on it, as chairman. They thought I was invisible. Tomorrow, they'll learn I built the stage they're performing on. My name is Leonard Garrison. I'm 49 years old, and for the last 5 years, I've watched my wife climb a ladder I built while she kicked me further down with every step. Tonight, that all changed. The fork scraped against Cameron's plate as he scooped up another mound of mashed potatoes. My son, 18 and full of that cocky confidence kids get when they think they know everything. He didn't even look up when he said it. "Dad, you really think Mom's boss sees you as competition?" Cameron asked, shoving food into his mouth. "He probably sees you as staff." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. I stopped mid-cut, my knife pressed into the steak. The sound it made against the cutting board was dull, grinding. Something in my chest tightened. I looked across the table at Bethany, my wife of 19 years. Her lips curved into this polite little smile, the kind you give when a child says something embarrassing at a family gathering. No correction, no defense, not even a glance my way. She just sipped her wine like we were at some tedious networking event, and I was the help who talked too much. I said nothing, just finished cutting the steak, passed her the plate, and listened to them go on about Roland Fisher's latest brilliant move to restructure the entire sales division. I knew that move. I designed a framework 8 months ago, anonymously, through one of my shell consultancies. She mentioned his name 4 times during dinner. Roland this, Roland that. Mine never came up once. After dinner, I did the dishes. Cameron disappeared upstairs to his gaming setup, shouting at strangers through his headset. Bethany poured herself another glass and took a call from the marketing team. She didn't whisper, didn't step outside. I heard the soft flirtation in her voice, the way she laughed at something he said. The same laugh she used to save for me, back when laughter between us meant something. When the house finally went quiet, I walked to my study, barefoot, lights off, didn't bother turning anything on. Just opened the drawer and pulled out the black leather portfolio. Inside, tucked under old invoices and a birthday card Stephanie had made me years ago, was the document that still made my hands sweat every time I touched it. Executive Oversight Agreement, Garrison Industries. My name wasn't handwritten. It was embossed, permanent. The title beneath it, founder and principal shareholder. It had taken me 12 years to build this company from a 2-man operation in a garage to a mid-sized manufacturing powerhouse with contracts across 3 states. Another 5 years to position the right people in the right places, step back into the shadows, and let Roland Fisher, the genius CEO everyone worshipped, take all the credit. Let Bethany rise through the ranks, believing her charm and talent alone put her there. Let them all think I was just the consultant husband who fixed things quietly in the background. The silence was never weakness. It was preparation. I stared at that embossed seal under the desk lamp. Something clicked inside me, subtle but permanent. This wasn't about anger. This wasn't even about revenge. This was about correction, about reminding everyone, including my wife and son, that quiet men aren't powerless. They're just waiting for the right moment. And tomorrow morning, that moment would arrive. The message took 8 seconds to type. Just 8. Activate Clause 7B. Silent equity to active governance. Effective immediately. I didn't watch the screen to confirm delivery. Just locked my phone, walked to the liquor cabinet I hadn't opened in months, and poured 2 fingers of bourbon. No ice. The smell alone brought back memories of the early days when Garrison Industries was just me and 2 machinists in a rented warehouse, building custom hydraulic systems for mining companies. I held the glass, but didn't drink. Not yet. Across town, in the steel and glass headquarters that my patents had paid for, Roland Fisher was probably reviewing quarterly projections in his corner office. The one with my name still etched on the original founder's plaque, buried in a closet somewhere. His phone would buzz any second now. At 6:47 a.m., Bethany's phone lit up on her nightstand. She was still tangled in the sheets beside me, one arm draped across my chest like everything was normal. Like last night hadn't happened. Like our son hadn't called me staff while she smiled in her wine glass. The buzzing was aggressive, insistent. She stirred, barely opening her eyes, then grabbed the phone. The screen glow lit her face in the dark room. "Roland," she muttered, her voice thick with sleep. She answered. This is early, even for you. I stayed perfectly still, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. But I heard everything. Roland Fisher's voice came through the speaker, sharp and breathless. None of his usual smooth executive calm. Bethany, I've been summoned. Emergency board meeting. This morning, 9 a.m. Bethany sat up slowly, confused. You're the CEO, Roland. You call the board meetings. Not this one, he said, and I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear. I'm not sharing it. She frowned. Then who is? Silence. Long enough that she pulled the phone away to check if the call had dropped. Roland. His voice came back, quieter now. Shaking. Your husband. The summons has his name on it. Leonard Garrison, founder and principal shareholder. He's invoking some clause I didn't even know existed. Legal is losing their minds. They're saying he's been the primary equity holder this entire time. The silence between them could have shattered glass. Bethany's face went pale. Her breath shortened, sharp little inhales like she'd just been punched. That's impossible, she whispered. Leonard's a consultant. He's not even on the board. She stopped, looked down at me. I kept my eyes closed, breathing steady. He's not part of the company, she finished weakly. He is the company, Bethany, Roland said, voice tight. I just got off the phone with our attorneys. They pulled the original incorporation documents. He owns 51% equity through a holding structure. I own 22%. The rest is split between early investors. He's always been in control. He just never activated it. Bethany stood up. Phone pressed to her ear like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Why now? Roland didn't answer that. Just said, be ready. This is going to get ugly. The call ended. She stood there in the dim morning light, staring at nothing. Then slowly, very slowly, she turned and looked at me. I opened my eyes, met her gaze. Morning, I said calmly. Her hand was shaking. The elevator ride to the executive floor was silent, except for the mechanical hum and the occasional ding of passing levels. No one spoke. No one made eye contact. The two junior board members who'd stepped in at the lobby took one look at me and moved to opposite corners like I was carrying something contagious. They knew. Word had spread fast. The glass doors to the main conference room were already open when I arrived. Inside, 9 board members sat around the polished oak table I'd commissioned 12 years ago. Most of them I recognized, men and women I'd personally vetted during the early growth phase. A few were newer, brought in by Roland during his modernization push. Roland sat halfway down the left side, his usual seat at the head conspicuously empty. His tie was perfect, his expression controlled, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed against the leather portfolio in front of him. Bethany wasn't here. Good. I'd specifically invoked a clause that barred executives under ethics review from attending initial sessions. I walked to the head of the table, set down my slim black briefcase, and remained standing. No pleasantries. No introductions. Good morning, I said, my voice cutting through the nervous silence. For those who don't know me personally, I'm Leonard Garrison, founder of this company, principal shareholder with 51% controlling equity, and as of this morning, acting chairman of the board. A woman I didn't recognize raised her hand slightly. Mr. Garrison, with respect, we were under the impression that operational control was delegated to Mr. Fisher and the executive team. It was, I replied, past tense. That delegation is now suspended pending a comprehensive ethics review. Roland's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I opened my briefcase and removed a single folder. Inside were printed emails, expense reports, personnel files, months of quiet documentation. We're going to discuss some concerning patterns I've identified, starting with nepotistic hiring practices in the sales division. I laid out the first document, a hire authorization for a junior sales manager. This candidate was approved despite having minimal qualifications. Her primary connection to the company appears to be a personal relationship with our director of sales and business development. I didn't say Bethany's name. Didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew who ran the sales division. Over the past 3 years, I continued, 17 similar hires have been made, all bypassing standard HR protocols, all approved through discretionary exceptions. Several of these individuals share personal connections to senior staff, vacation properties, gym memberships, social clubs. One of the older board members, A man named Vincent, who'd been with us since the beginning, leaned forward. Leonard, are you suggesting? What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we've allowed personal relationships to override merit. I'm suggesting that company resources have been redirected to benefit a select few rather than the organization as a whole. I turn a page. Next item. Executive bonuses. Mr. Fisher has authorized discretionary bonuses totaling $890,000 over the past 18 months. These bonuses were not tied to performance metrics. They were not approved by this board. And curiously, 60% of them went to executives who report directly to or socialize frequently with Mrs. Garrison. The room went very still. Roland finally spoke. Those bonuses were within my operational authority. Were they? I asked, looking directly at him. Because according to our governance documents, any discretionary compensation exceeding $50,000 requires board notification. You bypassed that 16 times. His face flushed. This isn't personal, Roland, I said, though we both knew that was only partially true. This is about accountability. This company has drifted from its founding principles. And that ends today. Bethany was waiting in the driveway when I got home. Not inside. Not in her car. Just standing there on the concrete, arms crossed, still wearing her work clothes minus the blazer. Her blouse was wrinkled. Her hair, usually perfect, looked like she'd been running her hands through it for hours. I pulled into the garage, took my time gathering my things, and walked past her toward the front door. Leonard, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't angry. It was something worse. Hollow. I stopped, keys in hand. Bethany. They put me on administrative leave. I turned to face her. I know. Her eyes widened slightly. You know, you did this. I initiated a review. HR made their own determination based on the evidence. She took 3 steps toward me, her heels scraping against the concrete. Evidence? You mean emails? Personal conversations between us. Things I said in confidence. Nothing you sent through company systems was confidential, Bethany. You know that. Her hands balled into fists. You humiliated me. Legal won't return my calls. Roland won't answer texts. Do you have any idea what it's like to walk into that building and have people I've worked with for years, look at me like I'm some kind of criminal? I set my briefcase down slowly. Do you have any idea what it's like to sit at a dinner table and hear your son call you irrelevant while your wife smiles into her wine? She flinched. That's what this is about. Cameron said something stupid, and you decided to burn my career down. This is about the fact that you've spent 5 years climbing a ladder I built while pretending I was lucky to hold it steady for you. I said, my voice level but hard. This is about the 17 unqualified people you hired because they were friends or friends of friends. This is about the bonuses you pushed Roland to approve for your team while the engineering department had a hiring freeze. I built that sales division, she shot back. I brought in clients. I closed deals. I earned every promotion. You build it with my company, my patents, my infrastructure, and you hired your yoga instructor's daughter and your book club friend's son into positions they had no business holding. Her face went red. That's a lie. It's documented, Bethany. Every hire, every override, every time you and Roland fast-track someone because they made you laugh at a dinner party. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something sharper. This is revenge. Don't dress it up as ethics. You're just angry that I stopped seeing you as relevant. I looked at her for a long moment. Really looked at her. At the woman I'd loved enough to marry, to build a life with, to stand beside for 19 years. No, I said quietly. I'm angry that you stopped seeing me at all. She opened her mouth to respond, but I turned and walked into the house before she could. Behind me, I heard her exhale, a shaky sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Inside, the house was empty. Cameron wasn't home, probably still at his friend's place, gaming and pretending the world outside his headset didn't exist. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood at the window. Outside, Bethany was still in the driveway, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling Roland, probably calling her attorney. It didn't matter. The board had already seen the evidence. HR was already conducting interviews. And by tomorrow morning, more would come to light. Much more. Because this wasn't just about bad hires and questionable bonuses. This was about the pregnancy test I'd found in her bathroom drawer 3 weeks ago. The one that came back positive. The one she hadn't mentioned to me once. And when the paternity question inevitably surfaced, everyone would finally understand why I'd been so quiet for so long. I wasn't waiting for the right moment to speak. I was waiting for the truth to be undeniable. Cameron didn't come home until almost midnight. I heard his car pull up, the engine cutting off, then silence. He was sitting out there, probably scrolling through his phone, avoiding whatever conversation he knew was waiting inside. I gave him 10 minutes. Then I walked out to the garage. He was still in the driver's seat, blue light from his screen washing over his face. When I tapped on the window, he jumped, then slowly rolled it down. "Dad," he said. His voice was different, smaller. "Come inside," I said. "We need to talk." He hesitated, then nodded. Followed me through the side door, past the water heater and storage shelves, to the far corner where I kept my old files. Behind a rolling shelf unit was a steel safe, bolted to the concrete floor. "What's this about?" Cameron asked. I punched in the code. The lock disengaged with a heavy click. Inside were leather folders, old photographs, and a stack of certificates, all bearing the same seal. Garrison Industries. I pulled out the first document and handed it to him. Articles of incorporation. My name at the top, listed as founder and majority shareholder. Cameron stared at it, confused. "I don't understand. This company your mother works for?" I said. "I built it 18 years ago, in a rented warehouse with 2 employees and a dream. Every patent we hold, every contract we won, every dollar that flows through that business, it started here." I showed him another photo. Me, younger, standing in front of our first custom hydraulic press. Then another, me shaking hands with our first major client, a mining operation in Nevada. "But Mom always said you were just a consultant," Cameron said quietly. "I'll let her say that. I'll let everyone say that. Because I wanted her to have her moment. I wanted to see if she could build something real. Turns out, she just built a network of friends and called it merit." Cameron set the documents down, his hands shaking slightly. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because people only respect what they can see," I said. "Your mother respected titles, corner offices, press releases. She stopped seeing me because I didn't perform. But performance isn't power, Cameron. Ownership is." He looked at me differently now, not with the casual dismissal of a teenager, but with something heavier. Recognition, maybe even shame. "The other night," he said slowly, "when I said that thing about staff, you were repeating what you'd been taught," I replied. "By your mother, by the people around her, by a culture that mistakes noise for substance." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry." I put my hand on his shoulder. "I know, but sorry isn't enough. You need to understand something. Strength isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the one who built the room in the first place." The call came Tuesday morning. Unknown number, East Coast area code. Leonard Garrison. The voice was smooth, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. "Speaking. It's Philip. Philip Vance. Been a long time." I closed my eyes. Philip Vance. My original business partner. The one I'd quietly bought out 15 years ago when his drinking and gambling debts threatened to sink us both. I'd paid him fair market value then, maybe even generous, but he'd never seen it that way. "Philip," I said carefully, "what can I do for you? I hear you're having some trouble with your company." "Wife. CEO. Little scandal brewing." My jaw tightened. "Where do you hear that?" "I still have friends in the industry, Leonard. People talk. And when they talk about Garrison Industries imploding, I listen." He paused. "Seems like maybe you could use some support. An ally with, shall we say, intimate knowledge of how you operate." There was the threat wrapped in friendly concern. "Or," Philip continued, "I could reach out to some journalists I know. Tell them about the early days. Some of the corners we cut. The safety inspection we fudged in '09. The contract we won through. Let's call it creative negotiation. Those decisions were yours," I said coldly. "I clean up your messes." "Funny how memories differ," he replied, "especially when lawyers get involved. I'm thinking your wife's legal team would love to hear about the less than pristine origins of your empire." I took a slow breath. Calculated. "What do you want, Philip?" "Consultant position. $200,000 a year. And maybe we forget about the past. Blackmail. Simple as that." "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't think too long, Leonard. Secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect them." The line went dead. I sat in my study, staring at nothing. Philip Vance was a problem. A drunk, a gambler, and now apparently, a desperate man with nothing to lose. He could complicate everything, unless I dealt with him first. She came to me on a Thursday night. I was in the study, reviewing patent documentation for a new hydraulic system design, when I heard the door open behind me. Bethany stood in the doorway, wearing a silk robe I hadn't seen in years. Her hair was down, makeup soft, the way she used to look when we were young and still believed in each other. "Leonard," she said quietly, "can we talk?" I closed the folder. "About what?" She walked in, closed the door behind her, sat on the edge of the leather couch across from my desk. "About us. About what we're doing to each other." "I'm not doing anything to you, Bethany. I'm correcting what you did to this company." "Is that really all this is?" she asked, her voice dropping lower. "Because it feels personal. It feels like you're punishing me for growing, for becoming successful." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The calculated vulnerability, the slight tremor in her voice, the way the robe had slipped just enough to show skin. "You're trying to seduce me," I said flatly. She blinked, the mask slipping for just a second. Then she stood, walked around the desk toward me. "I'm trying to remind you of what we had. What we could still have if you just stopped this crusade." Her hand reached for my shoulder. I caught her wrist, gently but firmly. "Bethany, you've always believed your body was currency," I said, looking up at her. "That charm and attraction could buy you anything. And maybe it worked with Roland. Maybe it worked with the board members you flirted with at conferences. But I'm not in that economy anymore." Her eyes flashed, the vulnerability vanishing. "You self-righteous hypocrite." "No," I said, releasing her wrist. "Just someone who finally stopped accepting counterfeit payment." She stepped back, her face flushing red. "This isn't over, Leonard. You think you've won, but you're destroying our family. Cameron will hate you for this. Your daughter, Stephanie, she'll see what you've become." "Stephanie already knows," I said calmly. "I called her yesterday, told her everything." She said, and I quote, "It's about time you stopped letting her walk all over you, Dad." Bethany's expression crumbled. "You told Stephanie?" "I told the truth," I replied. "Something you should try sometime." She turned and walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. "Roland was right about you. You're cold, calculating. You never loved me. You just wanted to own me." "I built you a kingdom, Bethany," I said. "You mistook it for a playground. That's not love. That's just bad judgment." She slammed the door on her way out. I sat in silence for a moment, then picked up my phone and texted my attorney. "Bethany attempted reconciliation tonight. Document it. Everything proceeds as planned." His response came seconds later. Noted. "Discovery continues tomorrow." The private investigator's report landed on my desk Friday morning. Thick manila envelope, marked confidential. Inside were 40 pages of documentation I'd paid $15,000 to compile. Roland Fisher wasn't who he claimed to be. I spread the documents across my desk. Birth certificate, name change petition, court records. 23 years ago, Roland Fisher had been Roland Fisk, a junior investment analyst in Boston who'd been implicated in a securities fraud scheme. He'd cooperated with prosecutors, testified against his superiors, and walked away with probation and a sealed record. Then he'd changed his name, moved to the Midwest, rebuilt his credentials through night school and strategic networking, and reinvented himself as a clean-slate executive. The fraud itself had been relatively small, inflated client portfolios, forged performance reports, but the pattern was clear. Roland had always been willing to bend rules, to manipulate numbers, to prioritize appearance over substance. And I'd handed him the keys to my company. I made 3 copies of the report. One for my attorney, one for the board, one for the investigative journalist who'd been sniffing around the story. Then I called an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. When Monday came, Roland walked into that conference room like he still owned it. Confident, tailored suit, that easy smile that had charmed clients for 5 years. I didn't smile back. "Roland," I said, once everyone was seated, "before we discuss the ongoing ethics review, I need to address something that came to my attention over the weekend." I slid a copy of the report across the table to him. He picked it up, opened it, and I watched the color drain from his face in real time. "What is this?" he asked, voice tight. "Your past," I said simply. "The one you've been hiding for 23 years. The securities fraud in Boston. The name change. The sealed record that wasn't quite as sealed as you thought." The room went silent. Every board member leaned forward, eyes locked on Roland. I was never convicted, Roland stammered. I cooperated with authorities. The charges were dropped. You testified against your colleagues to save yourself. I corrected. Then you erased your identity and lied on every job application since, including the one you submitted to this company. One of the board members, a woman named Ellen, spoke up. Mr. Fisher, did you disclose this history during your hiring process? Roland's jaw worked, but no sound came out. He didn't. I answered for him. Because disclosure would have disqualified him. Our bylaws explicitly prohibit hiring anyone with a history of financial misconduct, sealed record or not. Ellen looked at me. You're saying his entire employment here is based on fraud? I'm saying Roland Fisher doesn't legally exist, I replied. And the man who does exist shouldn't have been hired in the first place. Roland stood abruptly. You can't do this. I've built this company into what it is today. I brought in millions in revenue. You've built your career on lies, I interrupted. Again, the difference this time is that I'm here to stop it. By noon, Roland's resignation letter was on my desk. By evening, the severance negotiation was complete. 0 payout, immediate departure, and a non-disclosure agreement that protected the company but not his reputation. He left without saying goodbye. The call came from the police department at 2:17 a.m. A sergeant with a tired voice explained that Bethany had been arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and assaulting an officer outside a bar in downtown Indianapolis. I got dressed, drove to the station in silence, and arrived to find her in a holding cell, mascara smeared down her face, blouse torn to the shoulder. When they released her into my custody 3 hours later, she wouldn't look at me, just followed silently to the car, collapsed into the passenger seat, and stared out the window. We were halfway home before she spoke. I lost everything, she whispered. I kept my eyes on the road. You lost what you borrowed. There's a difference. I'm pregnant, Leonard. I'm carrying another man's child, and I have no job, no reputation, and no future. The board is going to sue me for the bonuses. Roland's attorney is trying to drag me into his mess. And you just sit there like none of this touches you. It doesn't, I said simply, because I didn't build my life on lies. She turned to face me, her voice breaking. What do you want from me? An apology? Begging? Do you want me to grovel? I want you to understand what you did, I said. You didn't just cheat on me. You didn't just disrespect me in front of our son. You corrupted something I built from nothing. You turned my company into your personal playground, hired your friends, pushed out qualified people, and when I finally said enough, you tried to seduce your way out of consequences. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't mean for it to get this far. That's the problem, Bethany. You never mean for anything. You just coast on charm and hope nobody looks too close. Well, I looked, and what I found was someone who stopped being my partner years ago. We pulled into the driveway. She sat there, broken, crying quietly. I'm filing for divorce, I said. My attorney will contact you next week. You can keep the house until it sells. After that, you're on your own. What about Cameron? She asked, voice small. Cameron's 18. He'll make his own choice. But I've already told him the truth about the paternity test I'm requesting for your unborn child. He knows it's not mine. He knows why. Her face crumpled completely. I got out of the car, walked into the house, and closed the door behind me. Through the window, I watched her sit in the passenger seat, shoulders shaking, until the sun started to rise. By noon, she was gone, packed a suitcase, and left without a word. I didn't try to stop her. 9 months later, I stood in the conference room I'd reclaimed, looking out over the factory floor below. The hydraulic presses hummed steadily, workers moved with purpose, and the entire operation ran like the precision machine I'd always intended it to be. Cameron stood beside me, intern badge clipped to his shirt. He deferred college for a year, asked to work in the company to understand what I'd built. To understand me. Dad, he said, the engineering team wants to know if you've reviewed their proposal for the new pressure valve system. Tell them I'll have notes by Friday, I replied. And Cameron, thank you for stepping up these past few months. You've been good to have around. He smiled, a little shy, a little proud. I should have been paying attention years ago. You're paying attention now. That's what matters. Stephanie appeared in the doorway, briefcase in hand. She'd relocated from Chicago, taken a position as our director of strategic development. Dad, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. They want to discuss the acquisition offer from Titan Industrial. Let them wait, I said. We're not selling. This company stays in the family. She nodded approvingly. Good. I'd hate to see someone else mess up what you've built. We walked to the boardroom together, my son and daughter flanking me. The board members stood when we entered, a sign of respect that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The meeting was efficient. We discussed expansion, new patents, hiring protocols I'd personally overhauled to eliminate nepotism and favoritism. Every decision was documented, transparent, accountable, exactly how it should have been from the start. Afterward, Vincent, the old board member who'd been with me since the beginning, pulled me aside. Leonard, he said, I owe you an apology. We all underestimated you. Took your silence for weakness. Most people do, I replied. But silence isn't surrender, Vincent. It's preparation. He smiled. Well, the preparation paid off. This company's stronger than it's been in years. That evening, I sat in my study with a glass of bourbon and the original articles of incorporation spread before me. My name, embossed at the top. Founder. Majority shareholder. The man who'd built something real. Cameron knocked on the doorframe. Hey, Dad. There's someone here to see you. Says her name is Rachel. I looked up surprised. Rachel Keating, the architect I'd met at a Chamber of Commerce event 3 months ago. Quiet, intelligent, someone who listened more than she talked. We'd had coffee twice, dinner once, conversations that felt easy and honest. She stood in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine. I hope I'm not intruding. I was in the neighborhood and thought. You're not intruding, I said, standing. Come in. Cameron looked between us, grinned, and disappeared upstairs. Rachel and I talked until midnight. About buildings and blueprints, about starting over, about the difference between noise and substance. For the first time in 20 years, I felt like someone actually saw me. Not the founder, not the chairman, just Leonard. And that was enough.